Evening everybody, Mike from Usually Broken Cars here. So today's video is a bit different. I'm actually looking to buy a hot hatch that's going to be family friendly. I need something that I can take my daughter around in without having to rely on my wife all the time, because at the minute obviously I've got an MR2. For those of you who haven't seen it, I will put a picture up on the screen now. So I'm looking for something that's going to be, it's not going to break the budget, it's going to be about £5,000 there or thereabouts. And the idea is to get something that is going to be family friendly, but at the same time I can take to the track and have fun on the B roads. So I'm going to start the list off with the Focus ST Mark II. Now this car was made from 2005 to 2010. There was a facelift halfway through that, and I've seen them as low as £3,000, and I've seen them as high as £10,000. But that's for sort of a real top end one. Now you get 221 horsepower, which I think equates to 225 PS, and that's 320 Newton meters of torque. It does 0 to 60 in 6.6 seconds, and it has a top speed of 152. Now it's not too heavy. I think it's actually the lightest one out of all the cars that I've looked at 1,317 kilos, and it has the advantage that it comes in a 3 and a 5 door option. It has the Volvo 2.5 litre 5-pot engine. It's turboed, and it's a 6-speed manual as well, so that sort of ticks a lot of boxes there. In regards to the styling, I'm a little bit reluctant to admit that I like it. It's very ASBO, and it is a bit boring. I think the pre-facelift ones now are pretty dated. They don't look that great anymore. The post-facelift ones still look quite modern and quite smart, but the pre-facelift I think have dated quite badly. But the interiors, on the other hand, although again a bit dated and a bit boring, you do get Recaro seats, and you do get a really nice dash setup where you get, I think, a boost gauge, an oil temperature gauge, and there's another gauge, but it's on the dashboard and it looks really smart. So yeah, that's pretty much, you know, the first one. The only thing to really mention is it does suffer with oil leaks from the engine, and it does have an issue with the lower arms failing, and also the engine liners. Even on a stock engine, the engine liners can fail, so it's just something to bear in mind. So number 2 on our list is the Honda Civic FN2 Type R that was produced from 2007 to 2011. I've seen them as cheap as £2,000 and as high as £16,000, but that was for a Megane M200, which is like a stupidly rare. I think they made literally 200 of them, and it real nice bit of kit, but yeah, well out of the budget. Now again, this one around the 200 mark has 198 horsepower and 193 newtons of torque, so it's down on torque, but it's 0 to 60 isn't too bad at 6.4 seconds, and it has a top speed of 146. It weighs 1,357 kilos, and it's only available in a 3-door, which is a bit of a downside when you're looking for a family car, but at the same time it keeps that sort of sporty aesthetic as well. In terms of power, it has the legendary K20 engine in it. It's a 2 litre 6-speed manual, and it's one of those cars. I think it's a bit of a Marmite car. You either love it or you hate it, and I think over the past few years, when I first saw them, I really didn't like them. A few years back, my wife and I purchased the diesel variant as our sort of family run-around car, and it was an absolutely brilliant car, and we loved it. But yeah, I do think it's a bit of a Marmite car. You either love it or you hate it. And there's some really nice optional Megane parts that you can buy, some splitters for the front and the rear, and a really popular spoiler as well. And I think the interior is probably the nicest in class as well. In terms of sort of faults or issues, they're common for chain noise if they've not been changed before. They have issues with the gearbox synchro meshes, and they have some issues with the paint as well, but generally I think it's a very reliable car and going to potentially be a good family car. So next to the list we have the Mazda 3 MPS, the first generation. I won't even bother talking about the second because it's well out of the price bracket, and for £4,000, so just creeping into that sort of affordable territory for myself, That's the lowest I found, and they went right up to 18,000 for like a really low mileage special example. It has the highest horsepower through the cars that I'm looking at 256, and again the highest newton meters at 380. And it also has the fastest 0 to 60 at 5.9 seconds, and it also has the highest top end at 155. I don't know if the miles per hour is limited at 155, but still the fastest in the category by quite some margin. It's the heaviest as well though, at 1460 kilos, so it's actually over 100 kilos heavier than most of the cars in the list. It does come only as a 5-door, which isn't a disadvantage, but it doesn't scream sporty. It comes with a 2.3 DSi turbo 6-speed manual. I had one of the Mazda 6 MPSs, and as much as I loved it, it was a really heavy car and unfortunately woefully unreliable when it came to things like the turbos. They weren't particularly great on the car. The fuel economy is appalling as well, so not the kind of thing that you can sort of putter about town in. And they are quite common for chain failure as well, so you have to be quite careful. The styling on the pre-facelift, again, it's okay, but it's very dated now, and the interior is very much the same. It's not an unpleasant place to be, but it is still quite a dated interior. So yeah, I think the Mazda 3, although it's potentially a good choice, it's also going to be an expensive choice. And it's also going to be something that's probably not that reliable, but it's certainly something to consider. So next on the list, Golf GTI Mark V. It's an itch I've always wanted to scratch. I've never had a VW, and I've never had a Golf GTI, and it's something that I've always wanted, and it's something that really I'd like to do and tick off the list. The Mark V was made from 2004 to 2009. In the UK, you can get them for as little as 2,000, and the most expensive I found was 13,000. It has 197 horsepower and 280 newton meters of torque, so it's the lowest horsepower out of the cars that I've chosen. 0 to 60 is 7 seconds, which again is the slowest out of all the cars that I'm looking at. Top speed of 146, which is the same as the Civic, but it does come in a 3 and a 5 door, so it ticks that family box, which is really helpful for myself. The engine is a 2-litre TFSI turbo engine, 6-speed manual, and it's the only car on the list with the option of an automatic, and it was a DSG box. I would quite like an auto car, but I think for something like this application, I think a manual is definitely going to be the better choice. I think it's a nice car, and please don't be offended by this, but I think it's a bit boring. It's sort of very classic styling, very classic Volkswagen, but it is the vanilla choice out of the list of cars. The interior is nice, but again it's a bit boring, but I really like the fact that you can get the tartan seats in it. They do look fantastic, and the golf ball gear knob, which is always a nice touch as well. In terms of issues, they unfortunately quite common for timing belts. They need to be changed and maintained regularly. I think it's every 5 or 6 years and every 50 or 60,000 miles. So if you plan on having one for a while or doing a lot of miles in one, you could be doing a costly timing belt quite regularly. The PCV valve fails as well. Now, the way to check that is if you pull the dipstick out and the engine starts to bog down, you know the PCV valve is working. But if you pull it out and it doesn't, then there's a potential fault on the system. And it has a habit of shredding and killing the rear tyres. For whatever reason, the factory suspension just seems to go through rear tyres. So yeah, that's the Golf Mark V GTI. So, final car on the list is the Megane 225, so like the Renault Sport 225 from 2005 to 2009. Now, it is the cheapest on the list by, some margin. You can pick them up for as little as £1,500, but that will be a real rough looking car. And as much as 10 grand is what I've seen them for, and that would be for something like an R26, like the F1 edition. The horsepower 221, so the same as the Focus, 300 newton meters. I think it's called a Megane 225 because it's 225 PS. Does a 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds and has a top speed of 147. It weighs 1,365, so pretty much smack bang in the middle of the list for that. And again, you can get it in a 3 and a 5 door, so ideal in that respect. Engine, 2 litre, 6-speed manual, so pretty much the same across the board as all the others. The styling, I think it's, again, like I said with the Civic, it's a Marmite car. You either love it or you hate it, and there was a lot of hate for this car when it first came out. And I think personally it looks better now than it ever has. It benefits from the fact that it's actually got plastic wings and things like that because it doesn't rust. The interiors are pretty crap, if I'm honest, but you can get them with some really nice Recaro. I can't remember the model of the seat, but there's some really nice Recaros, and yeah, they really do make it feel a more luxury place. The only issue I would say with the exterior styling is that it doesn't scream sporty. There's nothing about it that makes you think it's a sporty, fast car, except from probably, if you notice, the 4-pot Brembos through the front wheels and the twin exhaust system. But otherwise, I don't think it looks overly sporty. In terms of issues, they have a lot. It's probably by far the most unreliable car on the list, and that is including the Mazda in this list as well. It has issues with timing belts, it has issues with the flywheel rattling, it has issues with the general electrics for the vehicle, and generally the overall build quality just isn't amazing for the Megane 225, but I would definitely say it's well up the list. Again, it's something that I really want to try out and have a drive in. So yeah, so just to recap, 5 cars, all available for under £5,000, something that I want to purchase. So I want your feedback. I want to know what your experiences are with these cars. Let me know in the comments below. Obviously, we've got the Civic, we've got the Golf, we've got the Megane, we've got the Mazda 3, and we've got the Focus. So tell me what you think I should buy as my next hot hatch that's family friendly. Thanks for watching. See you all soon. Bye bye.